Anime Reborn and Anime Vanguards are two very big tower defense games currently on Roblox. Both of these games bolster very high player counts, and for good reason. They have massive amounts of hype behind them, as well as a big audience of content creators and players alike that support the game. And the constant comparison of both of these games made me think, is Anime Reborn better than Anime Vanguards? Will it cement itself in the tower defense genre? Or will it quickly fizzle out like much of the competition that came before it? That's the question that this video aims to answer. And with all that being said, let's get started.
Anime Reborn versus Anime Vanguards.
Some other things that are important to note about this video is that I'm going to be structuring it through 8 talking points that I feel are most relevant to the success of these types of games. That being gameplay mechanics, character design, progression and rewards, game aesthetics, community and support, in-game monetization, replayability, and unique selling points. I feel as if all of these aspects come together in an amalgamation of sorts to ensure a game's success and longevity on the platform. I'll also address the elephant in the room that this may be an unfair comparison since I'm basically putting a week-old game against a game that's been well established for multiple months now. Is this an unfair comparison? Absolutely. Am I gonna do it anyway for the video? You bet your ass I am. So let's get into talking point number 1. Both of these games follow the same basic gameplay formula. Get unit, place unit, watch unit attack, get money, place more unit, watch unit attack, repeat. And although they follow the same rudimentary formula for gameplay, this doesn't mean that they don't have differences which are worth noting. The first one being, do the towers have unique skills? Does each unit offer a specific style of gameplay catered to a certain stage, ability, enemy, or late game piece of content? And the answer is a resounding yes for both of these. Although your opinions might vary to which degree each game does it better, it is a fact that both games have unique intrinsic unit passives on all of their units, and this serves to add another layer of strategization and nuance to the game as you go about planning your team. Now, if you ask me which game I think does it better, I personally have no choice in between these two. I'm pretty neutral on this topic as I've used both of these passive systems for their units, and I can comfortably say that I like both of them. Some passives are a lot more impactful than others, and some feel like an afterthought, some don't. For example, Anime Vanguards, one of the passives for some of their secrets is just an outright stat buff. And although this isn't too mind-blowing or crazy, it does make secrets that much better. And I also have other passives that I see in Anime Vanguards that I really like. For example, Igris getting a damage and SPA buff whenever Sung Jin Woo's Arise minions begin killing enemies. I think this passive is really cool and creative, and it also serves to make the two units synergize. The same line of reasoning can be applied to Anime Reborn. Some of their passives don't feel very cool, although they are stat buffs. They're nothing too game altering or attention grabbing. For example, 21 Android, which is one of the secret units, one of her passives is just an outright stat buff. She gets more range. And although yes, this does make her better than the average unit, and further solidifies her place as a secret, it feels painfully uninspired for what they could have done with the character. But her second passive, where she buffs 15 units within her range, she buffs all of their range by 15%, I think is really cool. And although yes, it is just another stat buff, this serves to synergize with your team, and it makes you think, what unit do I want to add in here? Maybe I want to throw in a slow unit because I know he's going to have more range, or maybe I want to put in this unit that usually has pretty crappy range, but this time he'll be somewhat useful since my secret unit is going to be buffing it, and stuff like that. Enemy variety and difficulty scaling are two important things to note when discussing gameplay mechanics. In terms of enemy variety, both Anime Reborn and Anime Vanguards have shielded enemies, fast enemies, bosses, enemies that stun your units, but only Anime Reborn has flying enemies. Whether Anime Vanguards plans to add that in the future or not is uncertain, but what I can say for sure is that at the moment, Anime Reborn is going to take the point for enemy variety. In terms of difficulty scaling, what do I mean by this? Well, how easy is it to progress through all of the story mode as a normal free-to-play player who isn't going to spend any immediate money on the game? I would say that both of these games have a relatively balanced story. On my first playthrough when I first started playing, I was able to beat the entirety of story mode for both of these games with no mythic units. I was only limiting myself to epic, rare, and legendary units, which were more than sufficient to beat the entirety of story mode. So, in terms of difficulty scaling, I think these are relatively equal. Pretend this is a smooth transition. Character design has always been a big pain point in these types of games because people want to know what characters they're playing with and they want to know the anime that they're coming from. So, what is the anime accuracy for both of these types of games? Well, they both are fairly accurate to the source material. Both Anime Vanguards and Anime Reborn have anime characters that look like they're from the anime. You can point at any character in the roster and immediately be able to tell where they're from, who they are, and what anime they're from solely by looking at them, which is a plus. Now, their models are something that can be debated on pretty heavily. After looking at some of their models myself, I've come to the opinion that Anime Vanguards frankly beats them in the modeling department. And I'm not saying Anime Reborn is ugly, but look at this. This Kaido model is chopped. Now, I'm not saying I could do better, but I do have eyes, and what did they do to Bro? Now, there are some models that I really like 21 and Broly, so I thought I'd include those in there. Now let's look over at Anime Vanguards. As you can see, the models look very professionally made and very consistent. So it's not much of a debate to say which game has objectively better models, and I don't think it's a crazy statement to say that Vanguards beats them in the modeling department, but if anyone was doubting me, I will give you my examples, which I think are the most important units in the game, the secrets. These are the ones that are supposed to look the best, and they deliver on that front. So that is what I think about the modeling side of things. Let's move on to progression and rewards. More specifically, what's the reward system for both of these games? Well, I think that both of these games give relatively abundant rewards to the player, with Anime Vanguards giving over 100 something rerolls in their newest update, and they always have avenues of getting free rerolls in every update, which is always a welcome addition to the game. Anime Reborn also has very abundant ways of grinding rerolls as a free-to-play player, through leveling, index rewards, the unique challenges for each stage, as well as the plentiful codes that they drop at the time that I'm making this video. The rewards for both games are very plentiful. Now, in terms of progression, they both have the same standard evolve your units to get stronger, to be harder content progression type, so there's not much for me to comment on for both of these games. This really just comes down to personal preference over which game you like playing more for longer periods of time, because that's the one that you're going to be progressing more. What about the game aesthetics? Which game overall has a better style, UI, or VFX? Well, in terms of overall style, once again, I am going to give it to Anime Vanguards. This is once again completely subjective, and you can decide which game you like being in more, but the main drawback for me about Reborn is the fact that its saturation is rather high, and the overall art style for the game feels very cartoonish, very attention-grabbing, but not the type of attention-grabbing that necessarily makes me intrigued in the game, but more so nauseating levels of high colors and explosions and attention-grabbing graphics, which might entice some people, don't personally do it for me. In terms of the UI, I think both games have pretty decent UI. I like both of them, and I am neutral on this stance. Some people might like the Vanguard's UI better, some people might like the Reborn UI better. What I will tell you is that the Anime Reborn UI is very similar to Anime Defenders, so if you like the UI in that game, chances are you're gonna like it in this game too. The Anime Vanguard's UI has a more sleek, futuristic, almost minimalistic but in a good way type of UI feel, and I can also appreciate that for what it is. And their VFX, visual effects, which one looks better? Both of them have some pretty cool looking attacks. The secret units have very cool attack animations, and VFX, explosions, cool stuff, boom boom, you see it on the screen and you get the little neuron activation in your brain and your eyes light up. Both of them have this. Once again, this is subjective. I'm going to give it to Vanguards, but your opinion might differ. Both games look pretty cool though, so I'll give them that. And let's move on. Community and support. I know this talking point seems a little vague, so let me go more into detail. What is the dev interaction among these two games? Which game has developers that interact more often with the community in terms of update progress and when updates are actually going to come out? In the case of Anime Vanguards, they are not doing too hot. I know that recently they have posted a sneak peek, which is a step in the right direction, giving players more communication and actual visual representation of what we might get in the following updates. They still don't have a very good track record with dev communication. For most of the game's life cycle, they've been practically radio silent, with the only responses we ever get being "we're delaying this" or "update might come at this time," etc., with very little sneaks. This logically caused a lot of community unrest and frustration, which is why I can't really give them the point for dev interaction. And Anime Reborn has been doing a lot more of dev interaction. They've been posting more codes, they've been putting a lot more things in their update logs. But in the spirit of fairness, I will mention that the game just came out, meaning there's a lot of more features, bug fixes, and things that they might want to add, as opposed to Anime Vanguards, which has already been out for a good amount of time, and the only content that they want to add are actual concrete content updates. So I really can't give the point to either. On Anime Vanguard's side, they've had a pretty rocky road with dev interaction with the community, and on the Anime Reborn side, they still have a lot to prove since they just started out. Now, what about the community of these two games? Which game has a better community? Now, if you ask me personally, I'd tell you that the community is the same people. Same people that play AV, play AR, and vice versa. The same people that play Reborn, play Vanguards. Some people prefer it more than the other. Some people switch, some people stayed. And like any community on the internet, there are cool people, there are a few bad apples, and when you're a content creator, you get to meet some very, very passionate individuals. I might drop the odd tier list here or there that someone might not agree with, and there might be some comments about the state of me being alive that aren't very nice. But that kind of comes with the territory of making videos, so I don't really pay it too much mind. Let's move on to the next part. In-game monetization can really make or break these types of games. On one hand, players don't like feeling like they're being wrung out of every single dollar in their wallets, and on the other hand, developers need to find a good balance to appease the pay-to-play players, because those are the guys paying their bills. It's a very fine line to walk on. Now, what do I think about the monetization state of these games? Well, in the case of Anime Vanguards, I've said it once and I'll say it again, traits are not required to progress in the game, nor are they required to reap the rewards of endgame content. For example, tournaments have a traitless version where you can get the exact same rewards that a trait version would, just with no traits. It really just depends on whether you're good at the game or not. In the case of Anime Reborn, traits are not required to complete anything in this game. I do have a miracle unit, but for the purposes of this video, I've went by and I've played all the content the game has to offer without my miracle unit, and I can comfortably say that if you have a single mythic unit, you can beat the entirety of story mode, you can beat any legend stage, you can beat any challenge, and you could probably get to wave 50 on infinite mode on any map if you know what you're doing and you have an evolved mythic. So I don't think both of these games really require traits as a means to an end for progression, so I'm gonna say that they're both not too bad on that front. Now, there are things that I don't like about both of these games. The bundles in Anime Reborn rub me the wrong way, the insane prices of rerolls in Anime Vanguards rub me the wrong way, but none of these games are perfect, but they do both try to appease the free-to-play crowd, and I can commend them for that. Let's move on. If you want to keep a game alive, it needs to be replayable. And in a genre as oversaturated as anime tower defense games, replayability really dictates whether you're going to survive on the platform or not. So, are these games replayable? Do they have any replay value, content variety, endgame content, and player retention? Well, in the case of Anime Vanguards, they do. They have a variety of game modes to choose from, boss rush, tournaments, Paragon, story mode, challenges, you name it, they have it. Well, that's a lie, they don't have portals, but you get what I'm trying to say. They have a good amount of game modes to sink your time into, which each offer differing rewards with differing difficulties, and this increases player retention. Anime Reborn is a little bit lacking on that department. Besides story mode, legend stages, and challenges, which, mind you, all use the exact same story mode stages, there's not a whole lot to do in the game. Yeah, you can go ahead and evolve all your units and get the secrets, but with how easy it is to macro that game, it's not like that's going to take long anyway. So it really begs the question, how much replayability does that game have? To their credit, the game literally just came out a couple days ago, so I'm not going to do a whole deep dive YouTube essay level analysis trying to find out what replay value Anime Reborn has, because I'll tell you right now, it doesn't have a ton. But to their credit, game just came out, so that's that. For replayability, we're going to give it to Vanguards. The last talking point that I want to include in this video, and arguably the most important, is unique selling points. What sets these games apart? And why should you as the player invest your time and money into either of these games? That's what I aim to answer for this segment. We'll take it step by step. Let's go with Anime Vanguards first. What makes this game unique? In one word, it's quality. This game is the highest, most professionally made big budget anime tower defense game on Roblox. And it's not a very controversial statement to say that the main reason people stick around for this game and keep playing it and keep watching the YouTubers who play it is because the game looks very well made. The game feels very smooth to play. And if you think this is hyperbole, or if you think I'm glazing the game, I challenge you to go on the Roblox platform and find any other game that mimics the style of Anime Vanguards to the same degree of professionalism that they keep it at. I think you'll be hard pressed to find that. There won't be any. So what's the unique selling point for Anime Vanguards? It's their quality. What about Anime Reborn? Well, if I could summarize Anime Reborn in one word, it would be publicity. One very big factor for this game's meteoric success is the amount of content creators that have been pushing it on their channels. Big content creators with hundreds of thousands of subscribers and very loyal fan bases. But what do I think is the unique selling point of Anime Reborn? Well, when I began thinking about it, it really raised more questions than it gave me answers. Anime Reborn feels like a melting pot of all the different popular tower defense games on the platform. It feels like a little bit of Anime Defenders, it feels like a little bit of Anime Last Stand, it feels like a little bit of Anime Vanguards, and I believe that this was intentional. But in their quest of appeasing as many players as possible, it becomes a game at odds with itself. It can't decide whether it wants to be a tactical game, or whether it wants to be a cartoony anime tower defense game, or if it wants to be something in between. And I really struggle finding the line in between what this game's identity really is. Through trying to mimic the best parts of every single game, yes, it does mean that the end product is better for the average player. It also feels like the game loses its identity and almost never gets it to begin with. So if you were to ask me what do I think is the main selling point of Anime Reborn, it's that it's new. And that's as honestly as I can give it to you. Obviously, as time goes on, if they maintain consistent updates and add quality content that appeases their player base, then we know that their selling point is consistency. But at the time that I'm making this video, the game is too new for me to give you a definitive answer on what their selling point is, besides the fact that a bunch of YouTubers promoted it, and now a bunch of people who watch those YouTubers play the game because they were hyped for it, and now they like the game. So in the end, which game do I think is better? After looking at everything in a vacuum and comparing each of their strengths and weaknesses objectively, I'm gonna have to give it to Anime Vanguards. Now, does this mean that I think Anime Reborn is a terrible game with no potential to grow or have any longevity? No. But at the time being, Vanguards takes the cake, and I think that's what I'm going to stick with for now. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments, but I'll leave you with this. People are going to like what they like, they're going to dislike what they dislike. You shouldn't let anyone on the internet dictate your enjoyment of any type of medium, including Roblox games. So, with that all out of the way, thank you for watching, have a great day or night wherever you are, and we'll catch you in the next one. If you want to see more of these types of videos, good news and bad news. Bad news is, I never want to do this again. Good news is, if this video does well, I'll probably do something like this again. Now, we're done for sure. Bye bye.